How about you and I have a frank conversation about a dongle? And this time, it's going to be iBasso's new Nunchaku, thusly known as the Nun. Now, another fabulous packaging by iBasso, which is rightly so for a $299 dongle. This one's got many tricks up its yellow sleeve. First of all, it is a dongle of many faces. On one side, it uses the Cirrus Logic, the CS43198 on AB mode. And then, because that Cirrus Logic chip doesn't have the amplifier side built into it, iBasso has added 4 op amps from Texas Instruments and 4 BU FG34As. Now, power output. 525 milliwatts into 32 ohms on tube power and 450 milliwatts on AB mode. That is important when you're doing some listening and listening impressions. It does have very low power consumption. I run it off my S24 Ultra from Samsung and I go all day, no problem. This little guy, I should power it up actually. Beautiful OLED display, absolutely. And like a lot of the new iBassos, they have the companion app for Android. So you can get off of that, and I'll pull up a screenshot here. You can control everything. Now, later in this video, and I'll timestamp it, I'm going to do some comparisons to its little brother and its big brother. So that would be the DC07 Pro and the DC Elite. Now, just showing you mine, I do have a little bit longer volume control knob on it. The original was kind of there, but I have big fat fingers and I love this little, and I'll put a link to that in the description as well, that I found on AliExpress for a little bit longer volume control knob. All $2 worth. Now, let's talk about its sound. Let's get into sound right off the bat. On the other side of it is that tubes. Now it looks like there's a LED behind the tubes. Very tastefully done, not too bright. And when you're playing it in the dark, this I'm talking about, that it just has a very nice little kind of glowy effect. Really, really well done and tastefully done, iBasso. So I really like that. And I'm going to do some more comparisons later on to talk about those tubes, those Raytheon Jan tubes, the Jan 6418 tubes. There's 2 of them in here. And I know there's a bunch of voodoo that you need to do, because I went over when I bought my CAYIN N3 Ultra about what they had to do to make 2 tubes. You should have actually used 4 in a proper balanced output, but you got to do a bunch of mojo to make it happen. Also, one thing I love about this one is the fact that you can do everything on the OLED screen. Super simple to operate. I mean, you're just pushing it in, on, off, and you can control every function, right? So whether it be your filters, whether it be your tube mode, balance control, on this one it has, you can do all of that with the Nun. So really cool, really like that feature. The high-res audio sticker that comes on it adds about 100 decibels of headroom. I just made that up. But it, there you go. And it does come with this kind of yellowy pastel case, which I thought, again, was quite nice, especially if you're paying $300. Now, talking about that tube mode, why would you spend $100 more over the DC07 Pro? This is a wonderful sounding dongle. And the other one I have here is the Shanling UA6 built-in battery. Love this dongle. Again, using Serious Logic, one of the best implementations thereof. It'd be a toss-up between these two. Love the sound of both of these. I do like the volume control on the DC07 Pro more than I do the pushy buttons, but they're nice and big on the Shanling. Anyway, this is not a review on those. I already did this. The tube sound, that is the question. And I was, as a iBasso fanboy, I was really hoping that that tube sound was going to be legit. And if you've watched my CAYIN or follow me on anything on social media, you know I'm a bit critical on this DAP. It was the biggest disappointment for a tubey sounding amp DAC or anything device with the Jan tubes. It really does. It does have a different sonic signature, but it's very minute. And I was really hoping in iBasso's implementation that it wasn't going to be just a minor thing. And I'm very happy to report that let's get into sound. Tube mode does exhibit some of those analog qualities. Older audiophiles, like myself, who grew up with magnetic tape, reel-to-reel, many different vinyl players, needles, all that kind of happy stuff in the analog world, and we're yearning for. And yes, it does. It has a softer top end, a bigger, fatter bottom end, and a sweetness to the mids of vinyl. In solid state mode, AB mode, things tighten up in the bass and gives the Nun a more resolving, powerful presentation, dynamic, I would say, more than that. And that was the difference between the two sounds. But I really wanted to convey that this thing really does have, if you're buying it because you wanted to get some of that tubey goodness, yes, indeed, the Nun will give you that. And I'm really happy to share that because I was concerned. I didn't want to do as a fanboy, I didn't want to put down something that I really, a brand that I really do like. But you know me, I call it as I sees it. Now, I am going to do a comparison to another DAP, and that is the CAYIN N3 Ultra in their most tubey mode, the modern tube mode. Now, first thing you notice between these two pieces of electronics is that the Nun has a wider and a deeper stage. This is no slouch. It's a good sounding DAP. The Nun is clearly better, has a more lush tubey warmth, and has a lot less forward mid push, which was interesting. Now remember, when you're listening to electronics, it's not just tubes, it's not just DAC chip, it's not just the controller. It is the sum of the whole, which is the big problem of this one, in my opinion. So it has to play a part in all the components together. That is your sonic signature. When you're talking about this, I'm talking about just outputting it with headphones or earphones from the DAP itself. So now listening to the two, which is interesting for overall frequency response, I think the Nun is clearly a more balanced because the mids aren't being pushed forward as much. You get a much more balanced presentation. the Nunchaku is more musical, with some more weight and lushness incorporated into the music, especially into the lower mids. And that's what tubiness does for me. Clearly, you can hear it in the Nunchaku, and a lot more so than the N3 Ultra. To me, the N3 Ultra never really sounded truly tuby, as a more of a hybrid, more like a clean, bright, and surgically clean sound with a filter to induce that kind of tuby signature, but not really quite pulling it off. The Nun, in contrast, truly embodies, in my opinion, the essence of analog, and taming down that top end just a tad, and bringing out the analog nature that you would probably be looking for if you're looking for this kind of product. And as a tube hybrid source, the Nun slays the N3 Ultra, honestly. Yeah, and those two. The interesting part about those two is that it's also comparable for driving ability. That was one of my critiques also of the N3 Ultra, is it wasn't really that powerful. And I found in my journey with these two, let me unplug it, is that they could drive the same gear equally as well, even though on this is like 600 milliwatts, this is 525 on tube mode. Similarly, so that didn't really matter. On solid state mode, here the N3 Ultra just sounds like it has that tuby filter turned off, really, making the sound a touch more brighter and slightly more resolving. The difference with tubes on-off, though, I think is very minimal. The AB solid state mode with the Nun, though, is a much larger change between the two, turning it on-off. The tube mode, the stage goes supersized. The mids come through more up front, and everything gets probably bigger because of the more power output you get with the Nunchaku on tube mode. So you need to turn down the volume just a little bit to get a better sense of the sonic signature when you're turning the tube mode on off to AB and that, right? But once you volume match, you can hear how much more rich the music is on tube mode. So that was my observations with the two and its sonic signature. So now let's go to its baby brother, the DC07 Pro, right? I really think that dongle is wunderbar, as my German brethren would say. So at $199, again, the DC07 Pro offers a quad Cirrus Logic 43131 chip, so similar chip, same chip, but different, no amplifier section built in, or in this case it does have it. The two sound honestly very close. I hear a slightly smoother, sweeter tonality between the two with the Nunchaku. The DC07 Pro for me is, I still think, between that and the Shanling UA6, the best you can get for dongle wise under the $200 category. Sound, size, power, all fantastic. The Nunchaku is a clear upgrade for $100 more, giving you two distinct sound profiles, and that wondrous volume control knob. $100 more, yes, if you can do it, it's worthy of the upgrade for sure. Now, versus its big brother, the DC Elite. I've also put a bigger volume control knob on it, and this one uses that stepped actuator, so it's a little bit harder to turn, and that was what kind of got me to actually upgrade the volume control knob. versus the 0 to 100 steps. Much easier to turn on this one. It bothers some people. I like the solid feel, so not for me. Both of these, in my listening impressions, I turned the filters to NOS, non-oversampling. Both were in high gain. And when listening to The Crush of Love from Joe Satriani and his 6-string singing guitar, this is how they sounded. So the DCE, the impact and the slam is on a level higher. Not as much weight in Joe's guitar. Okay. Resolution and details on the DCE simply stand out. But the Nun does a brilliant job keeping up. The two are not that far apart, and even in tube mode. So the thicker, less forward mids, fatter bass, and a more laid-back analog feel you get when switching between the two on in tube mode is more noticeable. Definitely the Nun's tubey nature is showcasing here, right between the two. On AB mode, the DCE still had more bass presence and punchier, just by a tad. But the real difference is the depth, the layering, the sheer resolving power, where the nod goes to the DCE. Stage goes to the DC Elite, but the Nun is just as wide, but the DCE for me is more expansive to my ears. Again, I think iBasso did a pretty fabulous job in its stepped price points, and you're getting clear upgrades as you step up. I do not think that the Nun is a superior. No, the DCE is the superior sounding dongle, worth of the money for sure, and for people looking for, well, this is how I thought of it. Anyway, if you were trying to choose between the two, you'd have to ask yourself what's more important to you. Minimalistic music in its purest, rawest form, DC Elite. Resolution, layering, and zero colorization, DC Elite. Some vinyl vibes, tubey goodness, with a choice for the more dynamic AB mode. Price, maybe. Display, does have. More volume steps. Well, not really if you did the... Anyway. The more driving power might sway you to the Nunchaku. There's plenty of reasons to choose one over the other, I think. My takeaway is that DCE is clearly the best source for a purely musical experience between the two. But the Nun doesn't make too many compromises. It really doesn't, with a dual sonic signature and its tubiness that it does on its tube mode. Synergy will play a huge part. For me, for instance, on the At Full Cantor and the Nun on tube mode is very good. The DC Elite, though, it's magical. On the Omega, it was actually the opposite. It was the Nunchaku that actually moved me with that IAM. So, again, that's that part synergy. But again, it's nice having that dual sound signatures on the Nunchaku as well. So, I think that's how I'd wrap this review up. Pretty phenomenal. And again, knowing some engineering background of the Nun and looking into it and asking a bunch of questions, it's a marvel of real engineering on the Nunchaku. It's you think about all the things they have to pack into this thing, not just 3.5 single-ended, 4.4 USB, the controller, the host chip for that, and of course the screen, everything that goes, and the tube side, in order to incorporate a dual tube into a balanced system, takes a whole schwack load of white papers to read over. So in the end, honestly, if you're deciding to pick a Nunchaku up, I can't actually gush anymore about this little dongle than I already have for the last 20 minutes or so, because it's that good. And again, I was super happy to be able to do this review and share my impressions with you, and be honest in the fact that that tube mode makes a significant sonic difference from the solid state mode, and for that I'm very happy to have another really kind of source that actually does bring that organic goodness, that analogness to some of my gear. So this is the Tone Deaf Monk. Thank you for watching, and for those of you who have subscribed to my channel, much appreciated.